How's it going, everybody? This is going to be a Final Fantasy VII Remake discussion. My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Travis.
And we all come from different perspectives when considering this game of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Mike has played the original at a younger age, and then has actually played the remake around the same time we all have. Travis has not played the original. I played the original Final Fantasy VII, and that was probably around a couple years ago. So we all come from a little bit different of a perspective, and we're kind of going to see where we land eye to eye on this, where if we... overall impressions. I think I can speak for almost all of us saying our overall impressions were very good, but we are going to get a little nitpicky in here because there are a couple of things that I think is very wrong with the game. But we'll get to those points in the later part. So on a more cheery note, what was your guys' favorite parts of the game? Like, coming into Final Fantasy VII Remake, what are some parts that just blew you out of the water?
Well, I can start. I'll say, like, my favorite thing, like, especially from playing the original to this one, is that so many characters that were, like, irrelevant, like, all of a sudden had so much relevance, which was cool. Like, Jesse and pretty much everyone in Avalanche, you know? That, like a lot of them, outside of the main characters, were kind of just, like, side characters. And I almost forgot, like, Jesse and Biggs and all them existed. Because they're forgotten about so quickly in the first game. So it was, like, cool, like, actually seeing their personalities come out. Jessie, like, seemed like a main character. Like, she seemed, like, almost as important as, like, Tifa and Aerith, which I thought was really cool. So I think that was, like, my shining point in playing this, was, like, getting to know a lot of the characters, like, way more in depth, you know?
Oh, I completely agree with that. I think the backstory that was given to a lot of these other characters was done extremely well. It made you feel for Biggs and Wedge, where really they didn't get a spotlight. They're on the initial mission in on infiltrating Shinra headquarters, and that was about it. They were there. You could see them in the background. You might have had a line of text with them, but actually understanding who they were, where they came from, like giving a little more of a perspective about like who Jesse's dad was and what his condition is. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Travis?
Well, let's see. Because I have no content to compare it to, I wasn't sure how much backstory original, quote-unquote side characters really had. So to me, it was just like, oh yeah, that's good character development. That was really cool. I'm really sad that some things happened later. I guess spoilers are okay, because we're going to be probably talking about the ending later anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, my favorite part was just how, even though, like, the gameplay stayed pretty much the same, where you're kind of spamming up until you actually have abilities, and then you can actually do stuff. Like, I know you're supposed to also block and whatnot, but
yeah,
for the most part, it's kind of spam and do the same thing. But I never felt like it was getting stale. I don't know if it's just because you, like, upgrade your weapon, so then you had to, like, make sure to use its ability more, so then you can keep it as an, like, ability later versus, just getting rid of it. Because I know that's what kind of made me switch weapons sometimes, was just I wanted to have Infinity Edge or whatever that move was called.
Oh, that one was fun.
It was really good. So it kind of, like, made you want to switch weapons, but didn't force you to need to if you really didn't want to.
Yeah.
And then you were able to, like, always upgrade your old stuff, so it was, like, always still relevant too.
Oh, I completely agree. The thing that I thought was really cool too is in the middle of the fight, you're constantly switching between, at least the way that I like to play it, I was constantly switching between Cloud Barret and Tifa.
Oh, yeah.
And I think me and Travis discussed it before. We really liked Tifa because we just got to punch the shit out of all the.
Yeah, she was definitely the most
there,
fun to use because she was just so quick about things.
Oh, she was quick too. I love the fact that you could. In terms of the gameplay, I think we talked about this when we had like our impressions. I'm not sure. I can't remember if we did one for the not the trailer. What are you talking about? The
demo.
The demo.
We did talk about the demo before, yeah.
Yeah. And the worry was about the gameplay, and I think this, coming from a person who was more Final Fantasy, turn-based, active time all the time, I think the gameplay was stellar. I think the gameplay was, in terms of trying to bridge the gap, was done as perfectly as you could get. You could definitely see there's turn-based, or things that you would think that were more turn-based, where like you couldn't really completely avoid certain attacks. You were going to get hit, but if you block it, you can maybe do like less damage or whatnot, maybe like mimicking like just the defend option in a turn-based RPG. I think it was done excellently, and I think that's one of the things that really surprised me and blew me away, was the fact that this thing that I was so wary to, that I was just like, I think this is going to be the thing that's going to draw me off it, turned out to be one of the things that I like the most about it. Just the gameplay that it was able to go in. And the fact that there's no ignoring it. The game is freaking gorgeous. Like, every single character looks fantastic in the game. In terms of the graphics and gameplay elements of the game, I think it's unrivaled. I don't know if I have a complaint with it.
Yeah, well, I think that was the other thing I liked too about it was getting to see like just so much detail that they put into everything, you know? Because like I think the original game was beautiful, especially for like the time period and everything. Like everything looked nice, but I think there was just so much love I feel like put into this that like smaller areas that, again, like I said with the characters that didn't have a large impact, like had so much more meaning. Like there was that one part where like the orphans go to the cemetery and like you just see that little cemetery area and it's like it's cool to explore. It's this tiny little area that like has its own backstory. I think that's what won me over so much is there was just so much lore, I guess you could say, so much detail hidden in the world. And I think I'm always such a sucker for that kind of stuff in games. And then going to the first thing you said too, I lost my train of thought. Going into what you said about the combat, I also wanted to mention this too because I've played 2 Final Fantasy games outside of this one that have had like this pretty like active combat system where it's pretty much just like a normal combat system, like hand to hand. And that was Type 0 and 15. Type 0 I enjoyed, but 15 I didn't. And I was really nervous that Final Fantasy VII Remake was going to be like that. But I agree.
Yeah.
I think the combat in this game was so well made. I felt involved with it, and it still had a good amount of like active time battle in it. So I think that's what made it engaging. It was the first battle system like this that I think was actually really engaging for me, which I really liked.
And when you compare it to some of like the other boss fights in the Final Fantasy games that I've played, one of the things that I think is, I don't want to call it a trope because I haven't had an experience with a ton of Final Fantasy games, but things that I get frustrated about, especially in RPGs, and Travis knows like Xenoblade is extremely guilty of this, and a lot of the Final Fantasy games are like this too. They'll just wipe your party in one hit, and I find that's not the best way to do so. Like, oh, you don't have enough HP, you're dead. Or you don't have enough defense to take this hit, your whole party's dead. Like, I feel like that's the wrong way to go about it. And I don't remember, maybe it happened a couple times, but I don't feel like it happened as often in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I didn't, like, fight every enemy. Like, I avoided some fights. But that kind of thing of just wiping a team because maybe they're not at a level that you want to be at, I think is just, to me, it's just an annoyance. It's not anything that I would put lend a ton of credit to. But I like the fact that if there is an attack like that, like one of the it was like a desperation move kind of in Final Fantasy VI, where it'll wipe out a person on your team. But if you have the active time bar, and you have the say either the spells or the mana or the item to do so, you can revive them and you can adapt back to what the enemy just threw at you. And I really, really enjoyed that. And I think that's one of the best parts about the combat system. I never felt cheated out of a fight. I felt that if an enemy hit me with their worst attack, I was like, all right, this guy's close to going down, but I can bring back Aerith, and Aerith is going to help me take out this person or something like that. So I liked how quickly you had to adapt to a couple of these situations. I think that's another thing that really drew me to the combat. A couple things were unfair later on in the late game, but I think that overall the combat was definitely more fair than. I don't want to keep bringing up like an older game, but like Final Fantasy VI, where there were certain times where if I was just getting one hit team wiped, and I was just like, could I have done something about that? And I really just couldn't. So, anyway, we're gonna move on to a different section, and this is where we're gonna start getting a little more divisive. But it's going to be the story of the game, and for the most part, if you had to take the story as a whole and judge it as a whole, I would say it's good, not great. Maybe a little bit better than good. But then, considering the ending, I'm not going to go into it just yet.
The ending was it. Even I, as a original player, knew something was really off with how it ended.
It's like everything up to that point was so structured, but it was free-flowing. It was a free-flowing structure with how the events blended into the other. Certain parts I did feel like went on too long. Like, I didn't care about the thing that happened in the train graveyard. I felt like what happened in, like, the original Final Fantasy VII of just walking through it and you fight some enemies. I didn't think it had to be, like, a whole drawn-out chapter with some random ghosts and some backstory there.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple areas where I was just like, yeah, I felt like that kind of dragged on. I think that the parts that happen in the with the town where Don Corneo's brothel was, I thought that section was a little long too, but overall I thought it was fine. They threw some weird random rhythm game in with it too.
That was amazing though. It was not fun to do, but it was so weird and random that I loved it.
Yeah.
Like it was fine, but I mean, there's certain parts of the game that felt dragged, but I didn't feel like that like took away from the overall experience until the ending. So I was gonna ask you guys, what do you guys think about the story, excluding the ending?
Oh, Travis, this is yours.
Let's see. So for me, since I haven't had any like original biases, I'll say, I thought it was really good because, like what you guys were saying, there was so much backstory to everyone. I just thought it flew really well, and then I really felt connected with all of at least the major characters, I would say. And then like even like the weird random areas, I just kind of liked it was a change of pace. Mm-hmm. So I never felt too. I do agree the ghost area kind of took, but it was mostly because you would like find something and then all of a sudden something would crash and you had to find another way, and I'm like, really? I know that's where I need to be. Why can't I just be there?
Yeah.
And then like I would find a door and I thought that was the right place and it was locked and I'm like, this is dumb. But overall, I think the story was good. I mean, I don't have any complaints. It was, Shinra's bad. They're killing the Earth because of the Mako. It's been a while since
I call it Mako. Mike calls it Mako.
I like Mako sounds better, and it hurt me when I heard it called Mako in the game.
Like my whole life is a lie.
No, like honestly, like I agree with you, Travis. I feel the same way. I feel like the story was fleshed out and nice. I think the only thing that I really feel is how long is this? Like, how many parts are there going to be? Like that.
I'm hoping only 3.
How? That was like I wasn't even like a fifth of the game, really.
I know.
Like that's so much still to cover. It's like unless they go into less detail later, it's like
they have to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess unless
they would have to, but at the same time, that's also what we're saying we liked about it, is the amount of detail they went in.
I know, I do, but actually, like I kind of disagree, like with what you guys said about the ghost part. I liked that it was so detailed because it gave me such an inside look into something that was so small before, and I like that. And I'm probably in the minority, but I enjoyed like seeing the detail in all the little things like that. But I'm just
right. Like I didn't like dislike that area. It just sometimes I got to a point and I was like, I thought this was what I was supposed to do. Yeah. But now this is an obstacle, and I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think just like, but what? Because I like it doesn't bother me with how long things were, and it's not even a bother. It's just almost like a concern. Like this is gonna like in the end be like a 300-hour gaming requirement. Like it's going to be excessive.
And if we want to use that to segue into the next point, because the end is where I'm not going to mince words. It's where I start to not like it. Because everything up to that point, and I understand games divert down a different path. They wanted to have the character of Sephiroth in this game because he's so iconic. In my mind, that weakens his reveal and like who he is like as the game progresses. But you know what? I understand why they went down the route. I still don't agree with it. I still think that
they just wanted the really badass music with it.
He does. But I'm saying I think what they still could have done with this game is it could have kept Shinra as the bad guy and just kept the whisper of Sephiroth, because that was like the really cool thing about the original in my mind, is there's just, you had his name always in the back of your head and you never knew the damage he could do until you got into Shinra HQ and you saw it with your own eyes. You saw the blood trails going up, and then you just straight up see, well, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler for Travis on the original.
Okay, hold on. Go.
Yeah, just, you see the knife in President Shinra's back, and you just see Shinra's sword, like, just standing out. That shit was one of the things I thought was so cool. It's like, okay, this is a guy that can't be messed around with. This is a badass motherfucker right here.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just so lost with the fact that it seems like Sephiroth just has a crush on Cloud. He just keeps showing up whenever he feels like, hey, Cloud, you still thinking about me? And I totally feel like that's, again, I get it, but I think that it just weakens what he shows later on. And And I keep trying to bridge the gap where it's like I understand why the designers went this route, but I really don't agree with it. And then it gets to the part in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm just gonna say this again: spoiler warnings for this video. And then there's the time where like the president of Shinra like kills Barrett, like. What?
That was weird.
And then plot ghosts come back, and he's been alive this entire time. I'm gonna get more into that later on because there's an interesting theory that I think is bullshit, but I think it's worth discussing. But like, what was the point of any of that? Like, there's parts at the end of the game where I'm just like, okay, that fight was really awesome, but why? Like, I feel like it's just more confusion rather than anything. I feel like it was just Nomura was saying, I'm gonna throw a plot twist, and he never thought of where the plot twist was going or what the point of throwing in the plot twist was. And I'm just like, it seems, if Nomura could have shown with Kingdom Hearts 3 that he knew how to build up and actually have a good conclusion, then maybe I would have more faith in him. But it seems like what he was doing for Kingdom Hearts and up to Kingdom Hearts 3 is he was building stuff up just for the sake of building stuff up. So I don't think he has the best track record when it comes down to Final Fantasy with Final Fantasy VII now on delivering on what he's building up. I think he's just trying to throw a plot twist in for a plot twist for no purpose. And I think that that's a bad idea because it just confuses the people who are playing your game.
Yeah, so someone who never played the first one, I wasn't expecting really any of the Avalanche people to die at all. And when the shit show that was the climb happened, I was like, oh crap, I was not expecting this Jesse and kind of Biggs, I guess, because I guess he was okay later because he was like in the hospital bed. Looks like recovering
we'll talk about
fine,
that, don't worry.
Which I'm sure I think he died. I don't know.
I'll explain the theories behind that, don't worry.
Okay. So when Barrett all of a sudden got shot, and I was like, holy shit, I thought he was totally going to have plot armor, which, the ghosts obviously recovered that. But, like, when it first happened, I was like, holy crap, I didn't know this much death was supposed to happen, which then I learned it wasn't. But then it also kind of was. Emotional roller coaster at the end there.
So, Mike, do you have something you want to say here? Because otherwise, I want to talk about that point a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll just say that when, like, that happened to Barrett, that literally turned me off so much. Because, obviously, like...
So I'm not alone there.
Yeah, well, because, like, I think you and me know, especially, Nick, because we've played it before, Barrett was not going to die there. Like,
no.
So I was like, what is the point of this? Like, and like you said, it's just a plot twist for a plot twist. Like, I was like, okay, something's going to bring Barrett back. Like, just why did you have to make me think he died? He's obviously not going to die. And, like, same thing with Biggs. Biggs, I thought, like, okay, when he fell, I was like, oh, this guy's dead. It's just, like, weird. It's just, like, why do you need to do that? Like, what I love in video games is when they have those big moments like that. When, like, a character that you think has plot armor and this stuff dies, and it blows your mind. But, like, this game is almost, like, losing my trust. Like, now, like, if someone else dies, it's like, okay, well, they'll probably just be brought back because fate and destiny, and it wasn't their time, and it's just like, I don't know. It bothered me a lot, and I hate when games do that whole, it wasn't your time, so come back to life. It's like, so death is meaningless in this world. So, like, Cloud, Aerith, anyone can die, but if it wasn't their time, they'll just come back to life. Like, that bothered me. I didn't like that.
Oh, it pisses me off to no end. And this is where I think my main contention comes with the game. And this might sound weird, but it's really the lack of consequences and what that takes away from it. Because of the fact that when you're going up on that climb, the most powerful moments are the fact that you're seeing Jesse and you're seeing Biggs, and they're dying. They're literally... They're environmental terrorists at this point. They're doing everything for Barrett. And what happens to Barrett as he changes is that he realizes that pretty much, like, his hatred for his love of the environment, he's disguising as just a hatred of Shinra. He hates Shinra more than anything, and he's seeing his closest friends die, and that helps change him as a person. There's crucial character development that happens with Barrett because of the fact that his extreme beliefs cause his friends to die.
Yeah.
But then the fact Nomura throws in this alternate timeline bullshit crap where maybe there's a chance where we're all about defying fate and defying destiny, where I don't even think that's one of the main things of the original game. Whatever, I didn't really think that. But then you see this reality where maybe Biggs is dead. When the Sector 7 plate collapses on the slums, They all die. There's no heroic play by Wedge going to the freaking door gate saying, they're all gonna die! You need to get them out of here, you lowly Shinra soldier! No! Barrett's radical beliefs kills a lot of people. That shit is serious. And because there's no consequences, because of the fact that everybody made it out, everybody's okay, I feel like the game loses a lot of what really matters in the consequences of, like, what Barrett has caused to his community. And I feel like that just hurts us so much. And then going into the other part about this alternate timeline bullshit, from what it looks like, because you saw at the very end too, one of the characters that doesn't really even get elaborated on is Zack in the original Final Fantasy VII. If you want to know more about Zack, you play like Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core and some of the other Final Fantasy VII games that are an extension. There's like some shit where Zack like destroys like a whole army by himself. Like what they did at the end was pretty much say everything that you felt, all the stuff that you accepted as fact going into the next game, like, all right, you're switching stuff up, we're going into game 2, was completely erased. They pretty much said, we can start with a blank slate if we want to. And I feel like that's just a trope that I didn't want it to fall into, but it's just going that route. It's like, yeah, somebody can die, they'll just get brought back by plot ghost. Somebody can get seriously injured, but they're not really dead.
Yeah.
Random civilians, they're gonna stay alive. That's my main problem with this game. There's no consequences, and it was all thrown in at the ending, and that's why when I had that ending, I was like, I did not like that finale.
No, I 100% agree. I think, above all else, that's what bothered me the most is, like, because I agree. I don't remember the fate in, like, changing destiny. It was brought up a little bit, I remember, but I don't remember it being, like, a main thing. That's, like...
I always thought more of the theme was accepting the fact that you're in this cruel destiny and doing what you can about it, not trying to defy it.
Yeah, and I think...
Because, I mean, like, the group is kind of powerless against Shinra.
Right.
They're just doing what they can.
Yeah, and so I think that's what bothers me about this game is there's no consequences for anything. So if someone dies in the future, do I just say, oh, well, who cares? They'll probably come back. It's just...
Do you think they're going to do a fake out on Aerith's death?
That's what I don't like. What's going to happen in the future like that? Like,
well, just for a small $2.99, you can save his life.
Yeah, I don't know. It's...
Oh, God.
That wouldn't surprise me. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But no, so I think that's my main thing. If I didn't play the original game before, I don't think I would have felt as strongly about it. But I do think that one of the biggest changes for me, like one of the reasons I really felt for Barrett as a character and I really grew attached to him, if anything, was because of what happened in Midgar. And then after leaving Midgar and seeing as how he changes throughout his journey, I thought that was like some of the coolest development. And it was done in like a PS1 game. That kind of character development I never expected in a game that did not have that much memory storage. Like, I still think Final Fantasy VII is able to kick ass on, I don't know, like, a couple other characters. Like, if we even pull out, like, a more recent RPG, like, I don't know, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I think that Final Fantasy VII, like, for the PS1, still has more character development than some of those characters. Like, especially, like, Pyra and Mithra, I don't know, that's
Rex is very interesting.
Rex is bland as hell. He's just like, I'm gonna save the world.
And I'm gonna be happy about it.
But yeah, so I feel like we should go into a little more depth about the ending though. And one of the theories that I wanted to discuss is about the plot ghosts. So there's a theory, and I don't know if it was confirmed or not, but that all of those weird ghosts that you see throughout the game are plot ghosts, which pretty much says that the plot ghosts represent people who played the original Final Fantasy VII and want to guide the game to its original ending without much deviation. So the theory is that the reason Barrett didn't die was because we, as the plot ghosts, revived him. I'm wondering, do you think that's more stupid, or do you think you can give some credit to that being an interesting game mechanic?
That's the dumbest...
I think you know where I stand on that.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, but why does... That also speaks to the game design on... There's so much, like, credibility behind it also. Like, that's the weird thing. Why is there evidence to even suggest that's the case? Like, that's not a sign of good game choices.
Do you know what I heard is like it's like I don't know if this is like the actual game pitch, but somebody was thinking like they're having, like, you could totally see it like at a bar, people are having a couple drinks, you're just like, what if we put this meta element in the game where the people were represented by ghosts? And let's face it, after a couple drinks, you might have agreed with that being a good idea.
Yeah.
But as it being a game element, I think it's garbage.
After a boss fight is against a house, like, who the hell why not?
That's true.
Make people ghosts.
No, it's a fair point, but I wanted to bring it up to see where you guys land on that. I think it's really stupid if that's the actual case. I think it's one of those things that is a decent idea, but I don't think it ever really works in execution.
I have a question. Were those ghosts ever in the original game at all?
No.
Because, like, they kept coming up over and over again,
So
and
annoying.
I just assumed that it was going to be a big, like, Shinra thing, and it was, like, all of the evil tests they've been doing on humans, it's all of their souls, type stuff.
Oh, I thought it was going to be too. But also another theory that gives credit to the theory is, how Hojo gets sucked away, like, in one of the last chapters to keep him alive?
Yeah.
It makes sense as a theory. Like, it really does.
Yeah, no, it totally does, I guess. But that's frustrating. And that was the other thing that frustrated me about the game too, is it's like, to me, it looked like horrible story planning. It's like, well, we don't have a way to actually make this work, so let's have a bunch of ghosts come up so the story works the way it's supposed to. It's like, because that happened a few times, and I can't think of any examples, I'm sure you guys can better, of like times where they interfered at a critical time. And I'm like, no, I don't want it to be Cloud versus Ghost.
Cloud got separated from Barrett and Tifa by the ghosts for whenever they were going off on some mission. I was like, why are these ghosts interfering? But they're totally cool with hanging out with Aerith.
Exactly. I'm like, I want to see how the story plays out. I don't want these ghosts to interfere.
Yeah. I'm kind of hoping they just drop the whole ghost, interaction with the main with the main party later on, but Nomura's track record, I don't think so. I feel like this might be a section where he actually doubles down and he's just like, yeah, some people thought this was a cool meta theory, let's go all in with it, and then I don't know, maybe Cloud dies or something like that, and then he gets brought back or something. I don't know.
Then Aerith kisses him back to life, and now all of a sudden there's a waifu situation going on, and
oh god, the love triangle.
You
just
need more
worse.
waifus. I needed to be able to date one of them.
Well, when Jessie inevitably comes back to life, she'll be a part of it again.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally into that zombie stuff.
It wouldn't surprise me if Jessie comes back and has an integral role for when they're outside of Midgard.
Not at all.
I still like the backstory that they got, but that was just like the main thing where at the very end, and I will say this, like at the very end for a boss fight, yeah, I thought it was a little anticlimactic. If we're talking about like the final fight against Sephiroth, I thought it was anticlimactic, but in terms of what they were trying to, like, in terms of like how they actually made it so you got to play as other characters, if anything more, what I'm trying to guess going forward is how they're going to incorporate the other characters in the game, because they didn't let you play as Red 13. But the way that they're going to incorporate like Vincent Valentine, like Yuffie, like Sid, I'm really curious about. And I'll be honest, me and Mike see eye to eye on this. We both think Kate Sith's a piece of shit. But I will say that little animation, though, I think Kate Sith might actually. I would be interested to see Kate Sith get more character development, but the way that those characters play, I'm very curious about how they're going to incorporate it into the game, because all those up to that point were fairly similar. Tifa's melee, Barrett's range, Cloud has a giant-ass sword. Nothing too difficult. Red 13 is going to be way harder to fight. Yuffie has a weird, like, shuriken blade thing. Sid has, like, I guess Sid's with spear is easy, but, like, Kate Sith with his dice and RNG in that case, I don't know. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do about that.
Yeah, that'll be
these
interesting.
Characters that I know Red 13, but the other ones I don't know yet, right?
They'll just get introduced at
okay.
Get introduced later in the game.
Okay, good. I'm glad that I'm not just being dumb and I'm like, I don't remember these people.
I also
Sid,
and I guess if we're looking at like the future too here, I wonder like with Valentine and Yuffie if they're gonna be required to get this time around, you know?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, because they were not required companions in the other game.
Oh, that would be because you wouldn't put all of that data into like making them playable character and not have them have to be in your party.
Oh, all the weapon upgrades, all the animations. Yeah, I think it's a given that if they put the character in the game, you're gonna be able to play as him.
Yeah,
I wouldn't see why not.
Yeah,
but yeah. So a couple other points I wanna touch on too. So that was that one. So we talked about the story, we talked about the ending, and I think a lot of us see eye to eye where the ending doesn't seem to be leading to something that we would want to see.
No, parallel universe stuff never ends well, because
no, I feel like it's just like
it's just exactly. It's a cop out of storytelling just to like finish it, And then it leads to so much weird, random crap of... It's just lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's just lazy where it's like you couldn't think of an ending. It's like, oh, it's just parallel universes. Everything makes sense. It's like, no, you had so many good things going up to that point. Okay, but now one of the parts that I want to talk about is the Don's Brothel. Because I don't know why it pissed me off as much as it did. The fight with the Don's pet really pissed me off.
Don's pet.
The fact that the Don had a pet that he could manipulate on command. This is such a weird. This is a huge nitpick. It's just a nitpick. But when I had to fight the thing, I was like, really?
Wait, was
the Don had a pet monster?
Was that when he was like underground?
Really? Yeah,
that's when you went to the
you're in the
sewers,
sewers.
yeah.
That's right. Okay.
You know, it's really Star Wars-esque.
Yeah. Like I just don't understand like why that monster was ever in the story. But yeah, just a minor nitpick. But otherwise, I wanted to also talk about like more of kind of like the puzzle solving that goes into the game. So there wasn't anything like too complicated when it came into the puzzle solving. Like you had a couple switches, you had a couple diverging pathways and everything. Everything was like fairly straightforward. There wasn't anything that was like really meant to confuse you. And the original Final Fantasy VII was kind of the same way. It had a couple of it had like intersecting paths, but also gave you like mini games and whatnot to go on. But really, in terms of the way that they're interacting with the world, you're given a lot. And I think one of the things that actually shines through, where I was actually more leading this point, is actually through the mini games. Like, I don't know how many times I did the box breaking mini game, but I thought that was like really fun. And I'm wondering, do you think that's going to be as much of a... I guess it's more of a question for Mike. Do you think that's going to be as much of a focus for the next one? Because besides the Gold Saucer, I don't really see any times when you're really incorporating like a mini game into it. I guess maybe going for the Phoenix materia, but...
I was going to say that. I was actually going to bring up the Gold Saucer and say I could see that area being a really big one. I don't know. I mean, I could see them doing small things, like the dart mini game that they had at the bar and stuff. Like, I think they might do more to that stuff. Because, again, I think, and that's one of the things I liked about the game, is it expanded on that in that regard. Like, I don't remember the name, that Red Rock Canyon place. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, there was no real, like, mini-games there, but I could see them, like, adding a couple things with that environment.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think they'll definitely add some. But, again, like, my main curiosity is, like, how detailed are they going to get with that part of the game, I guess, you know? I think that's what I'm really curious to see, because if they get as detailed with that as they are here, like I said, we're going to have like 5 more parts. So I wonder if they are going to dial it back a bit when you leave Midgar.
The way that I mean, if they're doing it the way that, this is just the way that I would personally do it, is I would say that when you get to like, Nibelheim and you get to, again, like the Red Rock Canyon or whatnot, and also with like chocobos and everything, when you get to like the later stages, and I mean they did actually do a really good job with mini games too. Like you could do like the fighting in the arena if you wanted to. They had a couple of those like extra rewards you could if you manipulated the cranes correctly. I mean, I think it falls into the same trap where not all of them are winners. Some of them are kind of misses in my book. But they always, one of the things I always liked about Final Fantasy VII is it never kept you doing the same thing for just the run fighting like for too long. You're getting going into the overworld, you're getting a new vehicle to explore, other areas get open to you. You could do like the crap, what is it? What's the place that Yuffie's from?
I don't remember.
Wutai.
Yeah,
Wutai.
That's right.
You can do like the Wutai side quest too. Like all that stuff I think is really, really cool. But that's one of the things that I'm wondering how they're going to be able to do it, because I don't think they're going to be giving you like a vehicle to traverse like an overworld, because I'm not even sure if they're going to have an overworld for this next game too, because it'd be massive.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and then on top of that you have I think they also played up a lot of the things in Wutai, because I don't remember in the original that Wutai was like a big war that Midgar had with them, but they really played it up to blame everything on Wutai.
Yeah.
Is that my imagination, or was that not that big in the original?
I mean, I remember it being kind of big. There was like that mini game thing about it and stuff, I remember, and like there was a few things that talked about it, but yeah, I don't remember it being like a huge thing at all. But who knows?
Okay, so I'm not crazy there, but anyway, yeah. So I guess my main concerns going forward then, if we're just gonna go for the future at this point, because let's face it, I think this is still my game of the year at this point. I think so many things were done stellarly, and I was more attached to this game than almost any game that I've played this year. It's just that ending just, it pissed me off. But the future of the games, I'm curious to see like what they're going to do with the extra characters. Are they going to have an overworld? I'm with you, Mike. I kind of hope they scale it back a little bit just so they can reach another major checkpoint in the game later on. But to my point, like, almost every game element I think was done solidly except for the ending. Music was good, combat was fantastic, different weapon classes were awesome, different fighting styles were amazing. You got to learn about more of the side characters. If it wasn't for the lack of consequences and the fact that parallel timelines are a possibility for the next game, I think it's a 10 out of 10.
Now,
but right now it's sitting at a 9 out of 10.
Did this game end at the point that you thought it would? Like, obviously not like how it ended, but like plot-wise, did this go as far as what you thought it would?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Pretty much at the end of the motorcycle sequence.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So, where do you think would be a good stopping point for Game 2 be?
For Game 2, I would say a good stopping point would be, I think, the Land of the Ancients. I'm not sure if my...
You mean...
Because Disc 3 didn't have much. I think Disc 2... Like, Disc 2 ended, like, before the crater. But, like, I think the Land of the Ancients would be, like, a decent place for it to end.
Yeah, I could see that.
For Part 2.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because that's, like, the next big major event that, like, really happens in the game. There's not anything, like, too major what happens. Like, you have plot points with Barrett. You have plot points with, with Sid and whatnot and learning about him. But you never really hit, like, a big climactic moment in the story until you really get to the Land of the Ancients.
But see, that's a lot further in than the like that would be more content than the first one had, right? By a lot. So.
And I feel like if you stop at the Nibelheim incident, it would be too short.
Yeah. So maybe they will go that far, but it's just if there is detail, that game's going to be like a lot longer than this one was, and this one was already really long.
Oh yeah. So we're going to be waiting for till 2040 for the game, right?
Probably.
PS7, baby.
Good retirement.
All right, but otherwise, do you guys have any closing thoughts about the game?
So I think what I'll say is, like, I mean, I agree with you, Nick. I really liked it. I thought this was a wonderful way to do the remake. My biggest quip is, like, the ending bothered me, but I think that tied in with the whole, like, thing of, like, keeping things on track and not changing things really annoys me with it, and them, like, basically minimizing the impact that death is supposed to have in games. I think that has been such, like, a huge turnoff to me, because I'm huge on story. Like, that's, like, my big thing in games.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you take a story and you basically say, like, all the major events don't really matter because they can be undone or, like, they can be blocked or whatever. Like, to me, that's it tears down what is such an amazing story. And so I don't see why they had to do that. Because otherwise, like, gameplay wise, it's perfect. I think this is an awesome game. I don't know if it's my game of the year, but I would say it's for sure, like, top 3 for me. I wish they wouldn't have added that weird extra stuff.
Oh yeah, because, like, I was drawn in throughout the entire thing. Like, a couple of my closing thoughts on it too. Like, really, the only thing that, like, really turned me off on the game, like, was the ending. Everything else up to that, like, it had me hooked. I'm, like, an avid JRPG player or whatnot. Action or turn-based or active time battle, whatever the combat system is. And I've been experimenting with a lot of different kind of combat systems recently. I think Final Fantasy VII hit the nail on the head for almost everything. And it just seemed like that Nomura formula where it's just like, I'm going to end it with a plot twist. And it's just like, he loses so many people with it.
Yeah.
And that's really why it just tugged at a string, which I think it's like an old wound, really, where it's like, if he again, I said it before in the video, if he executed with Kingdom Hearts, I wouldn't be so wary. But now seeing it happen to Final Fantasy VII Remake, to me, it seems like he doesn't have a direction where he wants to go, and he left the door open for so many possibilities, but at the same time, he's pissing off a lot of people by leaving that door open.
Right.
I want him to pretty much have a definitive answer saying, like, listen, if Sephiroth's still the baddie, and we're focusing on Sephiroth, cool, we're going with that. Don't show, like, just some random fan services Zack. Don't show us, like, a possibility of Biggs waking up in the Sector 5 slums. Like, you close that door, don't open it back up. Open a new door completely.
Yep.
That's my biggest quip. But overall, I'm with you. Like, fantastic game. Loved it to death. I'd still play it again. I was considering platinuming it for a while because I just had that much fun with it. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen for the second one. But I don't think we're seeing it at least for, like, 3 years.
Oh, yeah,
like,
no. Especially with,
too
like,
big.
you know, the the big pandemic right now, I'm sure they haven't even been working on it really, because it's not even an announcement of an announcement. So
yeah,
Metroid Prime 4 might come out
though.
before it. Who knows?
Yeah. All right, Travis, your closing thoughts?
It was a really fun game. Yeah, I think like the plot twist stuff didn't bother me so much because like to me, I honestly was worried for Barrett's life.
That's true.
But for anyone who's played the original, I can see why it's just stupid because it's not necessary, and I hate plot armor stuff like that. Because like even once the ghost healed him, I'm like, that was kind of dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping that they can kind of, because what it sounds like is the original has a really, really good story already anyway.
Yeah.
So if you just keep the gameplay the way it was, stay to the original story, maybe have some extra like lore in it, like this one did, because I don't think any of us disliked that.
Yeah.
And then it'll be a great game.
Yeah.
And if you haven't played this, I recommend it. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Agreed. So
that's going to do it for our discussion of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Obviously, we had a lot of things to say about it. It's a huge game, especially when you consider the context that Final Fantasy VII had when it first got released. It's a fantastic game, and there's a comment section below. We want to know what you guys thought of it. I know that we have some people who really like JRPGs, and we want to hear your thoughts. So comment section down below. Let us know what you think. But otherwise, we are going to say goodbye and have a great day today.
Bye.
Farewell. Have a great day today.
Later.